So I just came in from outside. I was going to shoot this outdoors, but it's freezing and we're expecting a gigantic snowstorm, and I wanted to get home to be safe. And but I had this on my mind and I wanted to share this. And actually, this is a pretty special video for my channel because I'm going to be sharing something with you today that I only really share with my Patreon members. So I'm actually making this video, to be quite honest and transparent, to try to get more Patreon members, because my goal is to have 200 Patreon people by the end of April. So that's what this video is for, but also to give you an idea of what you get if you come to my Patreon channel, and also just to let you know what's going on, you know, in general with this film that I'm working on and with my YouTube channel and all of it, you know. So anyway, for those who care, I'm using the Panasonic S5, the original, the OG, and I'm using a Minolta 50mm f1.4 lens. I'm shooting at f3.5 because I didn't want everything to be totally obliterated behind me, but I did want it a nice depth of field and kind of separation from back there. So there you go. Here's the thing. This morning, I got up, and I don't know about you, but I got a lot of anxiety in my body right now because of what's about to happen tomorrow in this country. I'm not going to get political or anything, but I'm filled with anxiety. I'm thinking of my people in California. I'm thinking of all the women in this country. I'm thinking of all of my Latino friends of all different, you know, from all different countries, from Puerto Rico to DR to Chile to Spain to, you know, like everywhere, Mexico, Argentina, Venezuela. I'm just thinking about a lot of stuff. And if you're in Chicago on Tuesday, be careful. I'm just saying that because a lot of stuff is about to happen. So anyway, what I really want to talk about is I got on YouTube this morning and I started scrolling around because I was getting ready to work out. I was starting my workout. I was getting on the stretch table. I was going to stretch. I was going to do a bunch of strength work. So I was in for about an hour and a half of body work. And I always look for stuff to see on YouTube in the morning or just listen to music. And I didn't feel like just listening to music today. I wanted to get something that was interesting. And believe it or not, I was actually in the mood to watch some camera stuff. So I was scrolling around and I literally could not find anything that I was interested in. Like I scrolled for like 10 minutes and I'm like, damn, you know, this is the perfect kind of like situation that shows you that you should always make the videos that you want to see. Because this morning there were no videos that I wanted to see. And eventually I did find a couple of things. Like I actually watched Big Cook's video this morning and I really enjoy his channel. Even though he left Lumix, and I feel a certain kind of way about that, but that's okay. He's doing what's best for him. And I hope whatever he does, it serves his filmmaking and his photography, because I know he does both. And, you know, I don't think you should ever make a choice just based on brand or, you know, who's using the camera, you know, other than you, the community, stuff like that. Although I guess, you know, in some cases, if you're working on set quite often, and most people on your set are requiring Sony, then you got to get a Sony. You know, if most people are using Nikon, do that. But anyway, I enjoyed his video. I got some of my filmmaking stuff that I wanted. And even though I didn't really talk much about filmmaking this morning, he was talking more about being an influencer. It actually made me think of Charles Barkley, the basketball player, when he said he is not a role model. And Big Cook was saying he does not want to be an influencer. Anyway, it's a great video. Check it out. But what I'm saying is I couldn't find anything that I really was interested in. And all I really got was people saying, you know, talking about life stuff, you know, which I do a lot. I'm not hating on anything. I'm just saying that I wasn't interested in anything today. I wasn't in the mood for it. I don't know. You know, I don't know what to say about that. You know, there was just not a lot of interesting stuff. There's a lot of political stuff that you can watch right now, which I guess is interesting, although it's not really interesting because people kind of are who they are at this point in this country, and people aren't really listening. I find that that's the biggest problem right now, is that people are not receiving what other people are saying. Like, they're already thinking about what they're going to say back to you before you even finish a sentence. So there's no reasonable conversation going on right now. But I think as we get back into our lives and people find that prices are not going to go down and certain things are probably not going to happen, then I think the discussion will open up again. But we'll see what happens with all of that. I wish the best for everybody. You know what I mean? Like, I want everybody to be happy and safe, and I want them to be able to have opportunity, and I want people to feel like, you know, that they live in a country that is resembling what America is supposed to be about. Freedom, you know, respect of everybody, embracing immigrants who come to this country, because this country is based on immigration. Like, immigrants have built this country. Well, black people actually built this country, but, you know, they were brought here from Africa against their will. Whole other story. I don't want to get into it. So anyway, what am I sharing with you today? Man, I'm saying a lot right now, right? Probably a lot of people have left this video already because they're like, what the fuck? I don't even want to hear about any of this stuff, and that's fine. It's okay. This is who I am. This is the way I talk. This is the way I live my life. And that's why a lot of people in my life can only deal with me in small doses. And for 2025, my thing is to not deal with any people who can only deal with me in small doses. Like, this is who I am. My intentions are good all the time. You know, I just want everybody to be okay. You know, I have a thing that I say, which is, if everybody's not okay, then nobody's okay. And that's how I feel about that. So I'm kind of talking in circles, but let me get back to the point. I want to share with you the first steps that I'm taking in officially the beginning of my new film, which is based on a play that was canceled during the pandemic called The Red Plaid Suitcase. And this project is also going to be called The Red Plaid Suitcase, but it's going to be a feature film. But it's also going to have some live theater kind of stuff in it too. I'm trying to bring my lives together. You know, I have multiple lives as a creative artist, and I'm trying to bring it together. So I started the process, and what I'm doing at my Patreon page, which I'm not going to be doing here at YouTube, or at least not as in-depth, but I'm sharing the making of, the process, the behind the scenes of making a feature film all by yourself. You know, like being in front of the camera and behind the camera, which it ain't easy, you know. For example, you know, when you're shooting behind the camera, except that you're going to be the actor and you're going to be the subject in the frame, you got to get all the stuff together that people behind the camera get together, DPs, you know, camera operators, meaning the composition, your depth of field, your colors, all of it. You know, you got to tell the story from behind the camera, but then you also have to get your focus in order. You have to think about, how am I going to be moving in the frame when I get on the other side of the camera? Like, you really have to think about everything all at the same time. Lights, colors, everything. And so it's much more complicated. And it takes twice as long because while you're setting everything up behind the camera, then you have to get in front of the camera and you have to do what you wanted to do. And then you have to go back and look at it and make sure it works. And then start doing takes that you're going to keep. The other complicated thing is this. I like to shoot with anamorphic lenses. So what I'm going to do, and what I do is I will shoot everything with my spherical lenses first. Like, I'll create, when I go to a location, I'm going to pick a lot of the shots that I know I might want to use. And I'll shoot them with spherical lenses first, and then I'll go out there and do some movement and just, you know, get inside of the frame, work with my, you know, depth of field, like I was saying, work with foreground and background, work with colors, work with my exposure. I try to get out on a day that I want to shoot on, so foggy day, overcast day, sunny day, like whatever that scene is calling for. I try to get out there to shoot on that kind of day, to do this type of testing first before I officially start keeping stuff. So I do all of that. You know, I get the behind the scenes together, the behind the camera together, in front of the camera together, and then I do it all over again with my anamorphic lenses. Because I'm thinking of shooting this entire film with my two anamorphic lenses, my series 35mm f1.8 and my 75mm f1.8. And I'm really interested in maybe just using those two lenses because that's kind of equivalent to what I use with spherical lenses. I mean, the last movie that I shot it with a 28mm f2.8 Minolta lens, an old vintage lens, and this 50mm f1.4, also a Minolta Rokkor vintage lens. And I shoot 28mm and 50mm 95% of the time. So my series anamorphic lenses, if you know how to do that math, because it's a little bit different than regular math, because they're APS-C lenses. So they're 1.5 times crop, but also then you have to divide by the 1.33 squeeze factor. And so those two lenses, my 35 and my 75, are kind of like a 40 and an 85, which is very close to a 28 and a 50. Pretty close. I mean, kind of, sort of, in terms of how different they are from one another. But I have to make more adjustments in terms of pulling myself back, in terms of what I'm shooting. If I'm 40 millimeters, obviously it's a longer lens, so I'm not going to get the wide perspective that I get from a 28 millimeter. So it's funny, because as I'm saying this, I'm thinking, maybe I can't do the whole thing with those two lenses. If I had the 24 millimeter anamorphic lens of that series, it might be better. And maybe if I had full frame anamorphic lenses, you know what? The thing is, I love the way my anamorphic lenses look. They're beautiful. But nothing should be more important than what serves the story. Nothing. And so I write the script, which I've already done, and after you write the script, you start to envision what it's going to look like. Or actually, while you're writing a screenplay, you're writing visually what you want to see. And while you do that, hopefully you're thinking, because in my case, you're not only the writer and the director, but you're the cinematographer, you're the DP. So you're all these people sitting in a room together deciding what focal lengths are going to be right for this story, for these scenes. And are you covered for everything that you want to do? And are you going to be able to tell the story in exactly the way you want to tell it? For example, this thing that I'm going to share with you today, I'm testing focal lengths to see if I'm too far away in certain shots, if I need to get a longer focal length or get closer to the subject, or if I'm getting the feeling that I want, which is kind of this lonely feeling, so I want myself to be pretty small in the frame. But I also have to take into account that most people are watching films today on either their phones or a computer, Very few people are consuming on even a television set, and certainly very few people are going to the theater. And so I'm usually creating something with a theater in mind. I'm like, man, this is going to look incredible on a big screen. And there are small things in the frame that you're going to see on a big screen, but that you won't see on a phone, or you won't see even on a computer. You might miss little subtleties and little nuances that I want to include in the story. So I have to consider that as well. And that's part of my testing process as well, because when I do all this work with my spherical lenses and come back and look at it, and then I do all the work over again on my anamorphic lenses and come back and look at it, I look at it on my phone, I look at it on my computer monitor, obviously, where I'm editing in DaVinci Resolve, I look at it on my TV set, and that's about as far as I can go. I can't, I don't have a theater accessible to me, so I just try to do the best I can. So this is the kind of stuff that I'm sharing with my Patreon members. What it takes to make a feature film all by yourself as the only actor, although I might have some other people in this film, and actually I intended to have people in the last film that I finished, and it just didn't work out. So for this film, I might very well have some other people in the film, but basically it's a solo film because, I'm like a solo theater artist, so I'm kind of, I guess, creating a genre of solo filmmaking as well. And that doesn't mean YouTuber, it means proper feature film. I'm trying to make something as if I had a whole crew, as if I had 15 cameras and, did things the way Roger Deakins would do it, or Spike Lee or Martin Scorsese or any of my favorites, like I'm just trying to create that all by myself using two cameras, basically, the Panasonic S5, which 99% of the time I'm just taking out one camera. And then I just shoot from different angles, and I'll do the same scenes over and over and over again and cut in and out, and that's how it looks like multiple cameras. I'll get all different angles. I'll use different focal lengths if I feel the need, and I generally do it with one camera, but sometimes I also use my GH5. Now, you might think that that's more convenient using two different cameras and getting two different angles at the same time and saving time, but it's actually more difficult because when I set up with two cameras, I have to make sure I don't see both cameras or my lights or whatever I'm using in the scene. So I have to set it up, being very careful about that. And also, I don't know, it's just harder for me it's been harder for me, I'm not saying this would be everybody else, to really get the angles that I want, the looks that I want, the frames that I want in both cameras when I'm using two at the same time. I guess it's harder for me to be that schizophrenic where I'm now two camera operators at the same time, shooting one subject, it's just, I don't know, I find it more complicated, but I'm getting better at it. And I'm going to start shooting more YouTube videos with 2 cameras because I use YouTube as practice, you know? That's what YouTube is for me, more than anything. It improves my lighting skills, my composition skills, my editing gets much, much better. YouTube for me is something where I want to contribute, obviously. I'm trying to do stuff that's meaningful, that I think is really important, that I feel that I need to share. I'm never just throwing out some bullshit. I'm not doing that. But honestly, it's great practice if you're a filmmaker or a photographer, I suppose. It's incredible practice, so I highly recommend it if you're an artist of that type. So anyway, I guess I say all this to say, first of all, make the videos that you want to see on YouTube. Because I have this dilemma often where, I don't know what I want to watch. Sometimes I know specifically what I want and I find it because there's everything on YouTube. But sometimes I just want YouTube to tell me what I want. I'm just working out. You know what I mean? I'm just getting on the rope and stretching and doing my strength work and just give me some good videos. And more often lately, I can't find anything. I'm so tired of camera reviews. I don't want to hear about lenses anymore. I'm tired of it, And not to say that every filmmaker that I follow is not incredibly gifted, ridiculously talented. It's just that it's the same thing over and over and over again. I'd rather hear what artists are doing with their gear. And, you rarely see that. Every once in a while you see it, and it seems like a big special thing. But I'm kind of like, isn't that the point? Why don't I see movies that these people are making or commercials or, rarely do they share it. They do sometimes. But there are a lot of big, influencers, or as Big Cook calls them, or, content creators in the filmmaking space where you don't even really know what they do, And, maybe what they really do is YouTube, and that's fine. Being a full-time YouTuber is a real thing. But personally, I wish that I saw more stories. That's why I like to watch the Melodie page a lot, small films. And I'm constantly watching videos, interviewing Martin Scorsese, Francis Ford Coppola, people like that, Roger Deakins. That's what I'm interested in. I want to hear people talking about what they had to do to get the story across, to make a movie. That's what I want to hear. That's what I'm interested in. And so I kind of, find myself moving towards channels that do that. And I find myself really walking away from filmmaking channels lately. I'm just not into it. I want to know more about you personally. I want to know more about your life. I want to know more about what you think and how you feel about things. But mainly I want to know about your art, because there's a fine line. Sometimes I don't care what you're thinking or what you're feeling. And I certainly don't want to know what you're eating or how you go to the bathroom. And I don't, that kind of stuff doesn't interest me at all. But I do want to know who you are. I like that. I want to know your perspective on the world. I don't like when people seem to shy away from saying who they are if something's going on in the world and they don't like it, if people in California right now are dealing with a government that is actually saying that there might be strings attached or that they might have to say that they're going to make some kind of political changes and social changes in California before they get any help. People who have lost everything. I don't want to get political, but what I'm saying is I don't like when people shy away from, they'll mention something like that, but they won't really tell you how they feel. They kind of want to sit in the middle. I don't respect that. If you brought it up, say something. And if you don't want to talk about it, then just talk about cameras or just talk about bicycles or just talk about canoes or whatever you talk about. But don't kind of bring it up and then go, I don't know. Don't do that. That's the problem, I think. So anyway, I think it's pretty clear how I feel about things all the time. As a matter of fact, I think I say way too much sometimes. And right now, this video is getting a little bit longer than I want it to get. So I'm going to share this little thing that I put on my Patreon page yesterday. It's only 3 minutes long. And it's probably not scenes that are going to wind up in the film, but it's a good example of how I test my frames, my shots, my lighting, my composition, my storytelling. I might not share with you what these scenes are in terms of the script, but what I'm thinking of is, okay, this is the part where I go from here to there because I was just thrown out of a location or, it's part of a story. So I'm testing locations, I'm testing colors, clothes. Like, for example, this film, because it's kind of taking the place of a play that I wrote in that was supposed to open in 2020, I made a film out of that play that was canceled called The Center of Distance. And the main color in that film was like this maroon color. And so I think I'm going to use the same color in this film as homage to that film and that script, because they're really based on the same story. And I'm having the opportunity to bring this theater piece to life that I thought was dead forever, that I would never get a chance to ever share with anybody. And recently, when I went back to read it, I realized, shit, this is like the best thing I've ever written. So I'm incorporating the entire theatrical script into this film when a whole other story is happening at the same time. So again, I'm going to show you this little 3-minute thing that I shared with my Patreon page. I share a lot more with them in terms of pieces of my script. I let them read parts of the script, and I talk about, my journey of making the film. I'll share some of that here at YouTube, obviously, but certainly not nearly as much as I share at Patreon. So I would love to have you be a part of my Patreon journey. It supports me. I'm an independent artist. I don't have any corporate support. I do, from time to time, get grants or, artist awards and things like that, but it's very rare. They're very difficult to get, like very, very hard to get. And they're kind of like a needle in a haystack. And so the people that have supported me over the years, as an independent artist, has been like my lifeblood, all the sold-out theater houses that I've performed in front of over the years, all the fundraisers that I've had to do where people have stepped up and helped me to produce a play or make a film or get a computer because mine broke down in the middle of editing a film. Like, Patreon members are incredible, and people who step up in these fundraisers and things like that, you don't understand what that means to an independent artist like me, And frankly, that's why I'm so excited about YouTube, because I'm monetized, I'm actually getting paid, and I'm really focusing on how to build upon this now so that the amount of money that I make here really makes a difference in my life. Yeah, so that's all I wanted to say. Let me pass you on now to the little Patreon thing that I did, 3 minutes. I hope you love it. The Patreon link is in the description of this video, and I'll be back here with another video soon here on YouTube. And stay well, and go watch Big Cook's video, and go watch Cabral Creates, and all my favorite YouTubers. Just watch them and support them and understand how difficult it is to be an independent artist. It's very hard to be creative when you also have to fight and scratch and claw just to live your life, just to pay your bills, because mostly, certainly in this country, you're either a celebrity or a failure to people. And that could not be further from the truth. There is nothing more valuable than a great artist who creates despite all of the obstacles that they have to endure every single day of their lives. Not to say that we have like the kind of obstacles that people who have cancer or people who are living in complete poverty on the street. Obviously, I'm not saying that. But I am saying, as an artist, if you're living like me, if you have a beautiful apartment and you're living in a beautiful area and you have friends and you have the opportunity to do what you want to do, but you're still willing to live under the poverty level, that must say something about how much you care about what you do. I'm going to say Big Cook's name again. He just recently bought a new camera, and he had to go do some manual labor. I think he said like 17 days in a row, like busting his ass to get the money to get the camera that he wanted. That's what I'm talking about. He's an artist. He's an independent artist. So he had to go out and do whatever he does, work construction. I don't know what the hell he was doing, but he obviously made enough money to do what he had to do. And he's proud of that, and he should be proud of that. And we all should be proud of that and impressed and inspired by that. Cabral Creates is out here delivering your mail, driving a truck through New York City, waking up early in the morning, being the most dependable human, because through rain or sleet or snow or whatever the saying is, he's that guy, he's that superhero. And meanwhile, he's like a Roger Deakins level DP, cinematographer, filmmaker. Like, he is an awesome talent, crazy talent. Watch both of these guys' channels. Really talented, really gifted. And so, yeah, support them. And check out my Patreon thing right now. All right. Somebody please make this make sense, okay? So, I'm trying to figure this out. Trying to like wrap this around my brain about how a 10-year-old girl loses both of her parents, meaning they both died. And not even at the same time. I mean, her mother died when she was 3 and her father died when she was 10. And so I'm just trying to like get to this notion that like nobody in her family, meaning her extended family, like, like uncles, aunts, cousins, grandparents, great uncles, great aunts, whatever, whoever or whomever. I mean, you get what I'm talking about, right? She no longer had any immediate family because, like I said, her parents were gone and she didn't have any brothers and she didn't have any sisters. And so I'm just like, I don't know, like given all of that, I'm just trying to like wrap this around my brain about how nobody in her family, like none of them, wanted to take care of her. I don't know, or maybe I should say nobody was willing to take care of her, or could take care of her. Like, I don't know, like maybe there were some kind of extenuating circumstances or reasons or unforeseen kind of situations or, like some kind of craziness for this to have happened like this, but I'm just trying to get to all this, like I'm trying to wrap this around my brain. I am trying to figure this out. Right, so nobody wanted this little girl, right? This little 10-year-old girl, like this kid. And so she was placed in an orphanage in 1940, which I don't think that's good. I mean, I'm not trying to say anything bad about orphanages or anything like that, although they don't exist anymore, at least in this country, which I'm thinking is for really good reasons. At least I'm assuming that, like, I'm just saying, it's probably not like ideal or it's probably not like really fucking awesomeness for a young girl who was used to living at home with her parents to be sent away to this big ass place to be around all these kids that nobody wanted. And I'm not trying to be judgmental or anything like that, but I'm just saying, now she's around all these kids that like nobody would take care of, or could take care of, or whatever the circumstances were that brought all these kids to this place that had to be kind of like this institutionalized environment too, right? Like, you got a bunch of kids with nobody from their own families taking care of them now, and suddenly they're all sleeping together and eating together and, I don't know, hopefully playing together and hopefully being educated together and, doing whatever kids are supposed to be doing at that age. And that age. Like, what were the ages of the kids at this place? I mean, that's a good question, right?